Part of creating a character is developing his or her personality. This will not only lead to a more interesting character by giving the character depth, but helps create believability by assisting in finding interesting character-driven acting choices. Creating a characterization is much like putting on a costume to become a different personality. We've all seen an actor that plays that same personality in every movie. With good characterization and understanding of the character, you can avoid this pitfall. Using this as a method, we can act in a way we would not normally act. Perhaps you're animating a scene of an old lady. Even if you're not, nor have you ever been in a woman, you may have a grandmother and remember some of the ways she acted. Perhaps you can imagine what it would be like to be elderly in certain situations. Also, you can observe elderly people in real life or videos on the internet. Many an animator use a combination of reflection, imagination, and observation. Beware of trying to find that perfect reference from the internet, as it's time consuming and often ends up being futile. It's usually faster, more efficient, and often more creative to just act it out. The sign of a good animator is taking an androgynous character and being able to make the character act and appear like a happy little girl in one scene, but in another scene, you can take the same character rig and animate it to make the audience believe it's now a cranky old man. You don't rely on the model appearance to show who the character is. The animator shows the character and personality through the actions and acting choices. Remember, you're trying to determine how to move the character in a way that's interesting and appealing to the audience. You'll be turning in a typed Word document for your character development. We create these documents to help find interesting character-driven acting choices and to help understand the character when filming reference. Becoming your character can help you loosen up and avoid being camera shy. Think of your characterization as a costume you can wear over top of your own personality. Remember, we don't want to be that actor who always plays themselves. There are two elements in the character development that you will turn in. The backstory is the character's history. It's how the character became who they are now, the meaningful moments in their life up to now. It's not what goes on in the actual scene, and it isn't the moment that happens right before the scene starts. It covers how the character grew up and how the environment affected the person he is. Characterization covers who the character is and what makes the character unique. Gender, sexuality, habits, personal traits, all these fall under characterization. Before jumping into creating your characterization and backstory, give a listen to your sound clip. Does the way your character talks give you insight into his or her education or origin? Does the dialogue have patterns and beats? Is there a musical lilt to the words that inspires a movement style? Maybe your character is a city dweller or perhaps a high society snob. What kind of actions and poses will fit the dialogue and help portray this character? Let the sound clip stir your imagination as you think of what kind of person will be saying it. Now let's talk a little bit about the backstory. When creating the backstory, try starting at the character's beginning. Where was your character born? What was his home environment like growing up? Did he have brothers and sisters? Was he the firstborn, youngest, or middle child? Was he orphaned at a young age? Did your character grow up in wealth and neglect, or in poverty but lots of love? Then think of a few major events in his life that help define who he is. Did he experience a personal loss, or maybe a great personal achievement? Perhaps he witnessed something that changed his life. Now think about how these things affect his outlook on life. This can help your backstory feed into your characterization. Remember, you only need to do a short paragraph for the backstory to demonstrate that you understand who your character is. You don't need to go overboard, but you want to give yourself enough to work with as you go into your characterization. Animation is about movements. To an animator, how our character moves is crucial. A good animator wouldn't have Winnie the Pooh moving the way that Piglet does. So, as animators, we want to design the way our character moves. Actions and reactions are where a lot of the entertainment is in character animation. Have you ever seen someone walking away from you, where you couldn't see their face but you still recognize them? How is it you know who that person is if you can't see their face? It's because we recognize how they move. The way we move is very individualistic. Animators are very concerned with movement, obviously, movement styles and movement timing. So when creating a characterization, we'll be very focused on designing the style of the movement. For your characterization, we want you to see the following examined: temperament, status, use of space, power center, and energy level. To receive full points, you need to list and describe each of these 5 areas of concern. You can do more than this, of course. Just be sure to have these at the top and easy to read. Remember, these traits are not scene specific. This is how your character is day to day. Your character should be able to act out any of the scenarios provided with this personality, while a character with different personality traits would act completely differently in certain situations. Temperament is your character's general mood and feeling. Is your character's everyday temperament calm or excitable? Or perhaps nervous? Is he the optimist, hope-filled, and always seeing the good first? Maybe he's the opposite and always negative. Is he stubborn and closed-minded? Is he shy or outgoing? How does his temperament make him appear to others, and how does it affect him? Once you determine his temperament, determine how he shows this with his actions and body language. Describe how his movements and posing portray the characteristics you've chosen.
If I were the man I was 5 years ago, I'd take a flamethrower to this place!
Status is a character standing in his day-to-day life. Does he have a lowly position at work? Is he always pushed around or bullied at school? Maybe he owns the company he works at and walks around confident or even arrogant. Is he afraid of losing his status? How does the character's status affect his posing and movement? Does he make direct eye contact with those he speaks to? Or does he look down his nose at others? Is your character very focused on trying to change his status? Remember, these are elements of the day-to-day personality. They aren't scene specific.
You're just a mass of prejudices, aren't you? You're so much thought and so little feeling, Professor.
Use of space refers to how much of the scene the character uses for his acting and how large the movements are. If you think of the Hunchback character in The Hunchback of Notre Dame, he uses broad sweeping actions, while Piglet in the Winnie the Pooh films has tight and confined movements. How about Winnie the Pooh himself? If you were animating him, would it be broad sweeping actions? Or tight confined movements? Or some combination of them?
I sit in the subway sometimes, or in buses, or at the movies, and I look at the people next to me and I think, what would you say if I told you I was a witch?
A character's power center, sometimes referred to as the character's lead, is the part of the body that draws out the character's actions. Think about where the focus of the character's power is located. If you're going to be acting like a high society snob, perhaps the power center would be near the nose. In the examples here, the yellow character has a power center around his hips. Notice how the hips lead the action and take the rest of the character with him when he moves. The blue character's power center is near the head. See how the head starts the motion and pulls the rest of the character? And notice how both characters start with a similar line of action, but the character's power center has been pushed more so that the focus is on that area. The yellow character really thrusts his hips out, and the blue character leans his head forward more. What would the character's motions look like if the power center were in the chest instead? Or perhaps the stomach? Energy level can be described as how fast or slow the character moves, but also how often he moves. Does the character have a high energy that makes him move around a lot? Think about Scrat from the Ice Age movies, or Hammy from Over the Hedge. Does the character have a high energy level, but have a hard time finishing things, because he's easily distracted? That may be considered as meandering. Is your character light on his feet, or more plodding like Frankenstein?
Listen to me. I'm the crying man. You are the backup singers. Now, that's just the natural order of things. If we all start crying, it's just going to confuse the audience.
The 5 points mentioned are just a beginning. This plus the backstory is all we're asking for you to do in this course's character development. However, please feel free to develop it further. Perhaps you want to research your character's skills and abilities. If your character is a golfer, even a bad golfer, you'll want to know what a good golf swing looks like before deciding on how to depict the really bad swing.
You're guessing again. You're interpreting me. And you're wrong. You're dead wrong.
Maybe there are even some animal traits that your character unconsciously emulates, such as a tail wag. Using the points we've just covered, please list each of those and describe how his movement reflects each element. You will turn this in as well as a paragraph about the character's backstory. Remember, we need typed Word documents. Do not use other formats. Completing your characterization and backstory will finish the written part of your pre-production. Once you have a strong idea of who the character is, you'll move on to creating poses for your scene via filmed reference and thumbnails. Again, don't be afraid to really get in your character's head as you flesh out the character. I'm sure you'll find your scene more believable and entertaining for it.